Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is Andy Baylor. I'm part of the board here at the Miami University Greater Boston Chapter. Tonight, we actually have a very special guest to speak to you about her experience in the world of entrepreneurship and starting her own business. Tonight's interview with Alexandra Griffin, 2012 graduate of Miami, is sponsored by the Boston Chapter, and we're looking forward to kind of interviewing her and really getting to know her and her business a little bit better. So Alexandra graduated from Miami University in 2012, where she majored in business marketing. She was also a member of Kappa Alpha Theta, the Business Student Advisory Council, and she actually founded the business organization called Women in Business. So if you're still a student at Miami or you're an alumnus and you might have participated in that organization, that's something that Alexandra founded. After graduating, Alexandra went on to work in an international culinary research team at Dunkin Brands. For those of us in Boston, we love Dunkin, so that's a pretty cool job to have. She also helped to launch the Dunkin brand into global markets overseas. After her time at Dunkin, she went on to work in brand management and culinary innovation in Boston, London, the United Kingdom, and finally for Miller Coors in Chicago, where she worked on the Miller Lite and the Peroni brands. After 8 years in the industry and at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Alexandra wanted to turn back to the creative things she loved the most: food, sustainability, and nature. She found a way to combine all of those things in creating Alma Kitchen, which is a direct-to-consumer botanical shortbread company that she launched in August of 2020. Since that time, Alma has started distributing through the wedding e-commerce store Over the Moon, sold out during the holiday season, completely sold out where you couldn't even, get an order if you tried. I actually tried personally and I couldn't get one. And she's been written up twice in Veranda magazine and is favored by celebrities like Kelly Rutherford and Julia Engel. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Alexandra Griffin, and we're really excited to have you tonight.
Thanks so much, Andy.
And Megan Murtaugh is actually another member of our board. She's going to be going through kind of a question and answer period with Alexandra. So thanks so much, guys. I'll kick it over to you both.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Alexandra, for coming on and chatting with us today. We really appreciate it. So just to start out a little bit, why did you found Alma Kitchen and what was the inspiration behind the idea?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining. I know everyone has very busy schedules these days, and it means a lot that you're interested in hearing a little bit about my story. And it's always nice to connect with fellow Miami students and alums. So thanks so much. So yeah, the Alma story is one that is really personal because the idea originally started when I was planning a baby shower for my sister-in-law, and I was working on LeFevers, and I wanted something that was really beautiful and special. And I had seen a lot of work done with edible flowers before, and I thought, well, sure, I can create, a cookie or a shortbread with some really beautiful edible flowers on them, and that'll be a gorgeous sort of favor to hand out. And it turned out to be way trickier than I thought. And so fast forward to a few months later, and COVID had hit. I had left sort of the world of brand management and culinary innovation that I had spent a lot of time in. And I decided to really spend time thinking about what it is I want to do with this sort of next chapter in your life, as one does during the height of a pandemic. And for me, it was really revisiting things like creativity, photography, baking. Food has always really been a love language for me. And so as I was thinking about all of these different things, I thought back to that time where I wanted to make this favor for my sister-in-law. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I spend some more time working on this? It just sounds like a really fun project. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself initially as I was kind of thinking about what this venture could be or what a new venture could be. For it to be something huge and monumental and groundbreaking. And for me at the time, I just really wanted to revisit the things I loved. And so that's what I did. And so we launched Alma. And initially and right now, really, we focus on gourmet botanical shortbread, as Andy mentioned. And so what we do is we create organic shortbread and then decorate them with edible flowers.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I can't wait to try them out. So now would you be able to tell us a little more about your business model and the impact and reach that you've had so far?
Yeah, so we've been around for about 5.5 months, so we're still relatively young. But I think one thing that's probably worth highlighting is, during that period of time, one thing that's been really important to me, increasingly so, is sustainability. And as I was thinking about the type of business I wanted to start and the sort of impact I wanted it to have, sustainability was always going to be a part of that. And so for every box that we sell of Alma shortbread, we donate to the Nature Conservancy, which funds the planting of one tree. It's a way for us to give back, but it's also inherent in sort of our core values and what we believe in. We also are carbon neutral, so we offset all of all of the carbon emissions from our shipping. We offset, and we're working on new initiatives every day, because sort of sustainability and continuing to protect nature and our beautiful environment is something that will continue to be really important for us. So in terms of impact and reach, I think that's sort of the biggest area.
That's awesome. I know we and the planet thank you for that. Where did you first develop an interest in travel, food, culture, and sustainability?
Yeah, so I've always loved to travel. I studied abroad when I was at Miami, which is one of, I think, the many amazing experiences that it offers. And food has, like I said, always just been a really important part of who I am and how I really show love. I remember when I was little, just baking all the time. When we had new neighbors, or I had made a new friend, or for someone that was maybe going through a hard time, I would just bake and bake and bake. And so it felt really natural to go back to that. And so, yeah, I think merging food and travel and culture and sustainability was a really natural fit for me.
That's awesome. And you mentioned that you sell through the wedding magazine Over the Moon. So what has that experience been like, and how have you been able to get the word out about Alma Kitchen, especially that you're such a young company? What has that been like for you and your company?
Yeah, so primarily we are a direct-to-consumer platform. We sell through our website, and we'll continue to do that. I think it's a really important part of our business model. But that said, I sort of always said from the beginning, if the right opportunity comes forward, I'll look at other distribution methods. And I think Over the Moon is a really good example of that. So for those who aren't familiar, Over the Moon was originally an editorial wedding blog that then evolved into an e-commerce site. And a lot of really beautiful, well-known or emerging brands, I should say, now sell there. And so for me, launching on Over the Moon was really more of a marketing exercise. I knew it wasn't going to drive a ton of volume, but we were going to be connected with a lot of like-minded brands and a lot of really talented artisans and makers that I wanted to sort of continue to build my network within. So it's a beautiful site. If you're looking for gifts, or if you're getting married anytime soon, I would definitely suggest checking it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I was actually checking out your website earlier and saw all the artists that you collaborate with. And I thought that was extremely cool. Especially, I love Lily Pulitzer and noticed one of your artists used to work for that company. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's another thing that that's another thing that's really important to us is, so for all of our collections, we launch our shortbread, and we'll continue to launch, I think, a lot of our categories in food in series of collections, much like the fashion industry. We commission artists to design and paint the shortbread or whatever it is for the menu cards that go out. And it's a great opportunity for us to connect with that community and sort of build relationships, because obviously it's a really tight-knit community. But it's been really fun to be able to work with so many, mostly female, really talented artists.
That's awesome. Yeah, because each cookie is hand-painted, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. How have you been able to scale your business so far?
Yeah. So, primarily our purchasing is done, our occasions are gifting. So a lot of our growth has really come through customer acquisition. Driving retention and frequency will always be really important, and a really important metric for me personally, because I think it speaks to customer service and all of those elements. But so far, it's really been through just bringing new people to the site. And I think that will continue to be the case. we will continue to sort of expand beyond shortbread. So this was really just a chance for us to get our foot in the door. A lot of folks aren't familiar with edible flours, but the one category, or I should say item, it has developed a little bit of familiarity is shortbread. So that's why it made sense. We've now launched into truffles, and we'll hopefully continue to launch into new categories, which will continue to drive new customer acquisition, new occasions, not just gifting, but also for oneself. So that hopefully will continue to help drive and scale the business.
That's awesome. So going a little bit into your background, I know me personally, I'm a big Dunkin fan, and I'm sure the other Boston natives on this call will agree with me. What was your experience like working at Dunkin? And I know you worked at Miller Coors after, so we'd love to hear a little more about what that was like for you and working in the corporate world.
Yes, absolutely. So I spent 2 summer internships at Dunkin, and it holds a very close place in my heart as well. Not just because I'm a New Englander, but I sort of had a dream job there. I ended up being able to create a role for myself, as Andy said, in sort of this world of culinary innovation and research, and also a little bit of brand marketing. But it was in the international side of the business, which in many ways at the time operated like a startup. So a lot of what was happening on the international side, because it was a fundamentally different business model than the US, was an entirely different operation. So, when I was there, we had never had a marketing calendar. We didn't really have a product development process. Obviously, we had hundreds of suppliers across the globe. But what I spent a lot of my time doing was launching the Dunkin' Donuts brand into international markets. So it was a lot of travel. It was a lot of tasting different things, like different donut fillings. I remember being in Brazil and tasting like hundreds of different donut fillings, which maybe sounds great, but after a while isn't so fun. But it was a really fun first job, especially, and a great sort of foot in the door, and got me really interested in brand management.
That's awesome. And then from there, you moved over to Miller Coors.
Yes. Again, like who wouldn't want to work in beer? I feel like I've worked in some really fun
coffee, beer, and cookies. You got a great track.
Miller Coors was great. I, was there during a time where, and it's changed a bit, but beer was struggling. Folks, especially millennials, were turning to things like wine and spirits. And so for a change, I was working on a a category that was really struggling. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed the challenge. I worked on both Miller Lite and then launching the Peroni brand nationally. So I really enjoyed my time at Miller, and it's now been wholly acquired by Molson Coors. But if anyone is interested in learning more, if anyone is in Chicago and is interested in learning more about them, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. So bringing it back a little bit to Miami, what are some of your favorite memories from Miami? We know that you were a founder of Women in Business, which is a huge organization now at Miami. There's over 100 members. What are some of your favorite memories there?
So many. I think, starting Women in Business for me, I think shaped a lot of my undergraduate experience, especially my sophomore and junior years, just because of the work that went into it, but also because of the size that we were. So if I take a step back, the original goal of the organization was to really create a model that was a little bit different than the other business organizations. It was to create a model that was based on inclusivity. And so at the outset of the sort of recruitment process, if you were someone that was a freshman and didn't have a resume and didn't really have a lot of interview skills, that was who we were looking for. We were looking for those folks that we could help shape, but also they had to be really enthusiastic, excited, and curious. And so we sort of put the onus on them later in the process. So you don't necessarily need to come with the skills and the experience, but you need to come with the enthusiasm, and then we'll help build those things for you. And as a result of that model, we were a really large organization. I think we recruited like 300 or 400 people in the first semester. So it took a lot of my time. So I think certainly that helped. That was a big, experience for me. But obviously the friendships that I made were and continue to be just so amazing. And it sounds cliched, but it shouldn't be, because I think that's what college is for, right? To make those amazing friendships. So
for sure. Where was your favorite spot to hang out on or off campus?
Well, I don't know about favorite spot. but I did spend a heck of a lot of time at Farmer School of Business. I think I felt like, so I was there, my sophomore year was its first year opening, the new location.
Oh, wow.
And so it felt like I lived there. And then I was so bummed because when I was studying abroad in Barcelona, obviously Ides of March came to film, and I was like, okay, of course, the one time I'm away from this place that really feels like home, Ryan Gosling and et al. are there. So no, I loved Farmer School. I have really happy memories there.
Awesome. Yeah, Farmer was definitely a beautiful building. So now just a couple, do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, we have one. So how have you managed a startup during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, the question of the hour, really. So yeah, I mean, I think originally the idea seemed kind of ridiculous to try to start something that was inherently like a hands-on, required like being hands-on. It was a food product, seemed really risky. But we've been really lucky. We have been able to rent kitchen space from some close friends who, unfortunately aren't needing it right now. And so one sort of small upside of the pandemic is that it's allowed us to have a facility that we wouldn't have otherwise had access to. And so having that has been helpful. But, the flip side is, yeah, we have to be, ultra cautious. I have a R&D manager, and then we have one or two folks that come and help. We do temperature checks every day, obviously, gloves, full PPE. So, that is just kind of, I guess, the name of the game since the beginning. And it'll be interesting as we continue to operate, how that'll change. But I think that for us, especially, there has been pros and cons of the pandemic.
Sure. Another question we have is, do you plan on expanding your company into retailers or the grocery channel stores?
So right now, probably not. I think the best way I can sort of equate what my vision for Alma is would be a more modern organic version of like a Dean and DeLuca. So I think our business will primarily remain direct to consumer, albeit with a few sort of wholesale distributors, or a few that we will sell wholesale to. But I think it's important that we retain that equity. And because we are like a sort of higher priced luxury item, it's difficult to command that in the grocery space. And it's also difficult to retain the shelf life that we would need in order to distribute to grocery. So we will probably continue to be direct to consumer.
Awesome. That actually leads into our next question. What is your dream big goal for Alma?
It's a great question. It's hard for me, I could have probably really easily answered that when we started, but as you continue to get in the weeds, sometimes it's that moves closer and closer to where you are today. But I think the best thing I could probably say is that I want Alma to be large enough to support its own foundation that can continue to run and support its sustainability work, because ultimately that's an area I'm incredibly passionate about, and really feel like if that's not an area that we continue to support, we really don't have any business doing what we do, right? Which is celebrating nature and celebrating the beauty that it brings. And so ultimately I would love to have an Alma Foundation. And I think for me that would mean success.
That's awesome. And actually, leading to our next question, what are the top 3 things that led you to your success?
Well, I don't know if you can call it success yet, but I appreciate the question. I guess that maybe 3 valuable things I've learned or picked up along the way is, to surround yourself with really good people. And for me, that hasn't always been the person. And I think maybe this speaks to sort of my vision for women in business in undergrad, but that might not always be the person with years and years of experience. It's the person that raises their hand first and has the most enthusiasm and the best attitude. I think 9 times out of 10, you can teach skills. You can teach what experience can offer, but you can't teach attitude and curiosity. And so those two things will always be things I look for in people that I want to work with. So people, the sort of attitude of people. I also think, in the beginning, inherently, I'm a type A person. I was really cautious to sort of officially make this move into botanical shortbread. It felt sort of, it actually went against kind of a lot of what I was taught, right? Like I didn't do a market sizing exercise at the beginning. I didn't do a huge, robust business plan. It was just something I really felt passionate about. But at the end of the day, I just decided I'm just going to go for it. Like this is something that makes me really happy. It seems to be resonating with people at this time for X, Y, and Z reasons. And so we're going to move forward. And so I kind of had to just abandon a lot of the anxiety and the worries that I had, and just plow forward.
That's awesome. Well, we can definitely feel your passion. What is your biggest piece of advice for students studying business in college right now?
I think a few things. One, getting on webinars like this is great. Just continue to expose yourself to as many things as you can outside of the classroom. I think, if there's one thing that I'd love to continue to drive home, it's the more, before internships, before all of that, the more exposure you can give yourself to the business world outside of the classroom, the more it will make the classroom more interesting and relatable. I think about some of the classes that I took in undergrad and some of the ones I was a little bit less interested in, and they would have been so much more interesting and fascinating and engaging if I had maybe had a little bit more context, which I think a lot of times people lose in undergrad just because you're so busy and focused on other things. So context is key.
Awesome. What opportunities did Miami give you to help you become successful?
Well, I think, a few things. I think I was really involved with the business school, and for me, that was fairly attainable. I think for a lot of schools, it might not be as attainable. I was surrounded by a ton of faculty that were really excited about women in business, or whatever it was that I was working on. So the incredible faculty, I don't think you find at every school. I still keep in touch with a lot of them. And so certainly that was a huge part of it. I think the friendships, certainly the support that I get from the friends, they're not superficial friendships. They're really meaningful. And I think, that's not something you find at every school. So I think Miami really set me up for success in many ways. And I think I continue to sort of learn how those are connected more and more. But it's been nice because after, I think, a few years of not being as connected to the school and the campus, I've been able to sort of reconnect, and that's been really great.
That's awesome. Going back to your kitchen, can you tell us about your production kitchens? So they are asking about the staff size, equipment needed, etc.
The nitty gritty. So from the beginning, obviously there was a few different options. We could rent space from a communal kitchen, which a lot of folks use when they're at the startup stage. Some of them are more accessible than others. They actually tend to have fairly high, at least the ones in Boston tend to have fairly high fees that just weren't going to work with our business model because our product takes so long to make and the labor cost is so high. So like I said, we have an R&D manager now that manages our production and then our innovation. And then we have one or two folks that are sort of part-time that come when production is really high. Like right now and during Christmas, we're really busy with Valentine's Day orders. I think we have 600 truffles we need to make tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, lots and lots of chocolate. So right now we're using the facility, like I said, through it's a restaurant that is actually, it's 10,000 square feet. It's huge. And obviously that space is being completely underutilized right now. And so we're lucky that we're able to use their equipment, et cetera. But obviously as we scale, we'll want to invest in our own equipment. I think there's things like dough sheeters that would, make our lives infinitely easier that we'll want to invest in as we continue to scale, and then eventually potentially look at things like a co-man to produce for us.
Awesome. And another question we have is, can you describe the process for making the shortbread and incorporating the flours into each cookie?
Yes, I love this question because, I mentioned earlier, it's not an easy process. So edible flowers are really finicky. They are beautiful, but I found initially that pressing them into the dough and then baking them, unfortunately, caused a lot of them to shrivel up and lose their beautiful color. And so it took a lot of different iterations for us to find the right process. And for us, what we do is we just create a really thin layer of icing, and then we press the flowers into the icing. And what that does is it helps the flowers retain a little bit of moisture and keeps them vibrant for a little bit longer. It also gives a little bit of sweetness and gives a little bit longer of a shelf life for the shortbread itself. So we are really there's a few, if you look on Etsy, et cetera, there's a few other folks that are doing shortbread with edible flowers, but none are really doing it the way that we're doing them.
That's awesome. What products or baked goods do you want to explore next?
So this is great. So we're in truffles now. And then, like I said, I'd really like to get beyond just gifting, so that we can enter into products that are something that someone would buy for themselves. So we've been looking at things like granola. We've been looking at beverage concepts. So potentially something like a cocktail mixer. We've been looking at ways to innovate around the way people drink tea. If you think about traditional tea, there's actually a lot of waste that goes into the packaging. So you have the paper packaging of the tea bag itself, and then you have the larger carton. Is there a way that we can rethink that? So, I think as we think about category expansion, it's also about sort of how can we disrupt those categories in a way that's relevant and sort of ownable for Alma.
Awesome. Well, we have one final question for you. When starting your own business, how did you manage everything you had to do and get it all going?
I don't know that I manage it very well. If you look at my computer, I have a million sticky notes that have just so many different things that I need to do. And really, it's just about prioritizing them, focusing on what needs to be done each week and each day in order to A, keep the business moving forward, but B, also thinking about what's next. And so in the beginning, that was focused a lot on, building the brand. That was obviously something that was really important to me. Then it was focused a lot on operations. Now it's focused on, growth and a little bit of PR. So it can kind of change. And depending on the week, sometimes it switches back to operations fairly quickly. So you kind of just have to roll with it a bit.
Awesome. I lied though. We actually have one more question to end on, which is, do you grow your own flowers and how are they stored? The shortbread is so beautiful.
Thank you so much. So I would love to also get to a point where we can have our own greenhouses and grow our own flowers. Unfortunately, the Boston weather is not quite as comfortable. So we actually purchased them through two farms. One is actually in Ohio, which I love, and one is in San Diego. And so we purchase them every week. We just keep them in the refrigerator and then use them when needed. Some are a little bit more finicky than others. So some have a really short shelf life on their own. Some last a little bit longer, but hopefully we'll get to the point where we can grow our own.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we've all really appreciated you in hearing this. I am going to pass it off to Andy for our little conclusion. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Megan.
Hey, Alexandra, I'm back. Nice presentation. Great to hear about the business, obviously. Congrats on getting it to this point so far, and, looking to, really see your continued success as you, continue to build out Alma. So really proud to have you as part of the Miami University Boston Alumni Chapter, which is great.
Thank you.
I did have one announcement. We actually have a winner for our giveaway. So can you just describe one more time, what are we giving away tonight?
Yeah, sure. So right now we are featuring our Noir collection, which is it will be a permanent collection, but it's released really for Valentine's Day, and we have sort of two categories within that. We have a dark chocolate rose shortbread, and then we have some dark chocolate truffles, both made with fair trade chocolate. So the winner has the option of choosing between the truffles and the shortbread, and we'll make sure we get those out to you so you have them before Valentine's Day. But if you are not the winner, we'd love you to still try out Alma. So if you use the promo code Miami in all caps, that will allow you to have 10% off your first order with us.
Thank you, Alexandra. And just real quick, I'm just confirming the name of the winner backstage here, but it looks like Barbara Stetler is our winner, and she's the class of 1943. So kudos to you, Barbara. That is amazing that not only you won, but we're really proud to have you on this webinar from the class of 43.
That's great. Thanks, Barbara.
And we'll work on making sure that you get in touch with her and all that good stuff. So just to wrap up here, we do these webinars now that we're in quarantine in Boston. We do these webinars sort of on a quarterly basis. So I'm really pumped again to have Alexandra speak to you all tonight. We'll hope to do another webinar as part of the Greater Miami chapter, probably sometime in Q2, so around April, May, June timeframe. So if you're interested or have an idea for a future webinar, don't hesitate to get in touch with both myself, Megan, and here's our webinar site. For any recorded webinars, you can actually check out webinars from other chapters. Like I know Cleveland and DC do a bunch of things. So that's it for me. Any last minute comments from you, Alexandra, before we wrap up?
No, that's it. Thank you again for everyone that joined, and Andy and Megan and Emily, thank you so much for organizing this and having me. It's so much fun to connect with you all.
Thanks a lot. And we really look forward to seeing Alma's success, and keep in touch.
Great. Thanks so much.